Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Career Backstage Podcast. Today we have a new episode, How to Overcome Perfectionism. And we have a special guest, Vasia Toxavidi, who is a counselor, is an interpersonal coach, and also is a psychotherapist. Welcome, Vasia, to our Career Backstage Podcast, and thank you so much for having you here.
Hi, Diana. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be able to talk on this topic. Yes, so we're going to discuss about how to overcome perfectionism. It's something I've been saying through my career and my client work many times. So just a little bit of background from my
Yes,
side.
please. Yeah.
Yes, I'm a psychotherapist, counselor, interpersonal coach. As you wrote down, I have experience of working over 12 years with families, couples, individuals. And what I'm specialized is within relationship therapy. Well, I studied psychology and I did all the work around that, but I realized through my journey how I was always fascinated by by relationships, how people relate, why they relate the way they do, because I think everything we do is based a lot on on how we relate with others. We become who we are. So, and then I decided to specialize and train as a relational interpersonal psychotherapist. So yes, I work around that, and I've I've contributed to some articles. I still try to contribute, and I try to guide people really
This is what I
around
really
the life journey.
Yeah, this is what I really wanted to say, Vasya, that you've been featured in a few magazines and you wrote articles, several articles for magazines, and also you've been participated to different talk shows on TV, which is amazing. And I'm pretty sure, tonight we're going to share really valuable insights and also valuable information and relevant information for our audience that they can obviously use in their professional life, but not only in their professional life but also in their personal life, because professional life with personal life always is linked. So let's now start kind of go a little bit deeper into our topic, and let's explain people what actually is perfectionism. Just people start kind of be aware or self-aware if they are perfectionist or if they are not perfectionist. So sometimes we think, actually I have a lot of, I'm a very demanding person from others, but I'm not a demanding person for myself. So I'm not quite sure if I would say I'm perfectionist or I'm not perfectionist. So it shouldn't be there like a definition from, from the, let's say, from the dictionary, right? But it can be really simple, that people can really understand, or we can actually give some kind of specific deeper characteristics and traits of perfectionist people. So actually people can recognize if they belong to this category of perfectionist people.
Mm-hmm. So, it's funny how many times they say, "Oh, you're such a perfectionist." We have such an easy saying, but being a perfectionist can actually it can link to it can become overwhelming. So just to start, just to make clear, having high standards is very good, because having high standards and want to strive for excellence is a good trait, because that's how you're going to be able to perform better and do better. Is when this high standard becomes overwhelming. So for me, perfectionism is a trait where it's when people tend to not settle with anything less perfect, and usually that has affects them how they feel. So really, perfectionism is for me is like it's a wrong kind of thinking. it affects you how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. So it's a lot about, there are people who are able to say, okay, we can make mistakes, we're okay with making mistakes. But when you're a perfectionist, you take every mistake as a failure, and this affects how you feel, and then this affects how you behave. So a typical example of a perfectionist is chronic procrastination. It's
Yeah.
like when you have to do something and you take a long time to do it. And I think it is because there's a huge fear about whether I'm going to do it perfect. Um, so, and usually a perfectionist has specific thinking, specific behaviors. But I think you're right. It's about to understand whether you're a perfectionist, because there's a difference. Like, if you have high standards and you're doing well, and okay, sometimes you feel disappointed by making a mistake, and it's different when you are a perfectionist and it affects you when you make a mistake. So I think it's important to reflect on some questions to consider whether you are a perfectionist. And I guess some of these questions is about thinking, do I have trouble meeting my standards? Do I feel angry, frustrated, anxious, stressed when I try to have my standards met? What happens if I don't meet them? Does this affect me? Do I start feeling really low, withdrawn from others? What do other people think of me? Do they usually say to me that I have high standards? And the most important thing is, do my high standards get in the way of me performing, of, for example, ending a task, or doing a presentation? So this is the beginning of start reflecting on whether someone is a perfectionist. For me, is about whether it starts affecting mental health.
I'm so happy, Vasia, that you share these kind of questions, because this is the way how people can start think about, do I, do I am, or really I am a perfectionist person or not? Because I met so many people in my career who obviously they spending such a lot of time for doing a check on themselves. Like, okay, they have a specific task. I know that you have to check each task that you do, but they spend so much time, and they ended up spending hours checking and assessing again a specific task. And then, or other people, they set up unrealistic maybe goals, exactly as you said. So and perhaps they need to check maybe if these goals that they set up for themselves are achievable for them, they are smart goals, or they are not able to achieve, for example. And if they're not able to achieve, they need to look, okay, why I'm not able to achieve these goals, or how I can make some, how I can set up some specific goals that I can obviously achieve them, or how I can break this goal down in order to be achievable for myself. Do you think that some people are more perfectionist rather than others? And also, before we go to this question, I also want to add that some people, obviously, they, you know, because of their perfectionism, they don't really want to delegate tasks. They try to, work um, and do by themselves, because sometimes they think, okay, other people who are gonna do it, they're not gonna do it as perfect as I am doing. It's not because maybe they don't trust. It's because maybe, okay, I know I will gonna do it perfectly, so that's fine. I'm okay to take it and do it by myself. And some people actually criticize them. Some people, perfectionist people, they criticize themselves because they are over demanding from themselves. And exactly as you said, they end up with anxiety and depression, with some mental health problems,
Mm.
which
Yeah.
is,
Mm. What I want to add here is, when you said about, when you're a perfectionist, you don't want to delegate tasks because you want to do them, maybe because you think that you can do them perfect. I'm thinking also it's because I would say perfectionists also would think, or would, that if they ask for help, they would seem as weak people. So, and we're going to get back to that, because I think this is the deep trait of a perfectionist, if we're going to get there. But I think what starts with the perfectionist and perfectionist thinking is a specific kind of thinking, which we call negative thinking or automatic negative thoughts in therapy. So, for example, perfectionists think very black or white, which is like, you know, if I do a mistake, I'm a failure. If I ask for help, they might think I'm a weak person. So therefore, they might not ask for help, or they might get stressed if I make a mistake. Imagine if every time you make a mistake, you criticize yourself as being a failure. And the most important then, it's the other thinking, which is catastrophe thinking. This is perfectionism is linked completely to catastrophizing thinking, which is, you know, if I go and I don't perform well my presentation, and I'm humiliated by my colleagues, or I will never be able to survive that. So it's the catastrophe thinking.
Yeah.
And another thing you find is another kind of thinking is called probability overestimation, which is something I hear a lot of my clients, like, you know, oh, I cannot ask for days off. My boss would think I'm lazy. You know, which it's normal to take some days off. You need that to take care of yourself. And then, of course, it's the should statements. I mean, if you hear a perfectionist thinking, a lot of times say, I should be doing that. I should. The should word is so evidently always in the sentence, which, you know, if you think about it, if you always say, I should, you always put pressure. It's almost like a task. You always have to do everything into a taskful way. It's pressure, automatic pressure on yourself. So, and this automatically creates stress.
So Vasia, we have some comments, really nice comments here, so I can see it, and I'm really happy to share. So because we started this topic and it's really important, I can see people watching us, and I'm so happy that they start kind of sharing, you know, the comments already. So Muhammad Yassin is asking us how we can identify standards, and how can we make perfectionists ourselves. That's really great. Some people obviously would like to become perfectionists, isn't it?
Do you really want to become a perfectionist? It depends on how, you know, it's important to be able to balance that, you know.
Yeah. He's asking what are the basic necessities to become perfectionists. So yeah, I completely agree with you. It should be a balance there between, you know, how you can control this, because otherwise, as I said, you end up with anxiety and depression, and I don't think so. People would like that. So, how do you think that we can actually become perfectionist people? I think first of all, you know, is start by setting up some, you know, achievable objectives for yourself first. This is maybe one thing that you can do, you know, to see how you can become kind of really more organized, and become, you know, more perfect in a way that you do all the tasks.
I think, you know, how to become a perfectionist. I think, you know, it's a word, you know, better not say I want to become a perfectionist, because you're already putting a lot of pressure to be a perfectionist, and you might lead yourself to be a perfectionist. Better to say, how can I be a person when I can achieve what I want to achieve? Because words have a huge effect on how we think and how we feel and behave. So I guess, as you said, is about, first of all, for me, is about being clear on what you want to achieve, have that clarity, and then, you know, put that goal, write it down, and then break it into small steps, how you can achieve something. Because I think having small steps can lead you to something, to where you want to go. You cannot jump to something. So be clear on what you want, break it down to small steps, and then write how next to it how you can go to achieve it, and follow every step on how you can achieve it. We always doing one step at the time, and then after doing it, always reward yourself, because I think you say, how can I become a perfectionist? Yes, perfectionists can achieve things, but by really struggle and by not really taking care of themselves or loving themselves. Sometimes we're not talking here about everyone, okay? We're talking specifically about some people who are affected by perfectionism. And this is where there has to be a balance. Because, as I said before, according to me, you said something before, why some people are more perfectionist than others. I think
Yeah,
you said something
exactly.
like that, Diana.
Yeah.
And
And what is that hidden difference, between
yes,
this?
so it's true, and I've seen through my work that there are people who are more perfectionist than others, and usually these people, I'm sorry, are the ones who are more successful. They are successful people's perfections. We are not going to say no, because they're really putting a lot of effort in doing things, and they never, give up. But sometimes that will have an effect on their mental health, because they're pushing so hard that at some point they will get burnt out. So why some people are more perfectionist than others, according to my experience or my observations, what I would like to say is that usually perfectionists are the people who grow up to feel that they have to be reliable. Usually are the firstborn children or only children. They have a sense of responsibility, the sense that I have to rely on myself to be successful, to do things. It's almost like they cannot expect things from others. So everything has to be on their own back in a way. So, and these are kind of the people who would really grow up with this and keep doing that, keep feeling reliable and keep pushing themselves. But also, in order to do that, they do something. They're very self-critical. There's nothing good enough for them. So that means that they're not having a great relationship with themselves. You cannot be self-critical and saying that I'm happy with myself, but they've learned that if I push myself, if I talk to myself in that self-critical voice of, oh, you didn't do that well, you're not good enough, do it better, then this is how they get successful. But this learned behavior they created within themselves actually makes them disconnected from who they really are, and that can come afterwards and show afterwards within how they feel or their personal relationships, or how they relate with other people. And this is something to reflect on and think, some people. And something else I've noticed is something I call personality vulnerability. So what I've noticed that the people who tend to fall into the perfectionist side, there are people that they have this personality vulnerability. What is that I call personality vulnerability? Is the people that always want the approval of others. They don't think so much about themselves. They think so much about how to please others, how to get the other people's needs met, make the other people's needs met, and they forget of themselves. So that's why, if you think, perfectionism is a constant struggle of approval in a way, and so and that's why nothing is ever good enough. Even if you get success and you achieve a task, then you have to think of the next one, because it's a thing of, I'm gonna have to feel good. Nothing's good enough. So it's a constant struggle of approval through sabotaging yourself of nothing ever being good enough. So the moment this internal thinking becomes less self-critical, I think, and becomes a balance, then it can become a more healthier way of achieving your goals in a healthier way and becoming successful professionally and personally in a way.
Yeah, you're right, Vasan, because you pointed out about self-critical, being self-critical, or, also means that you will, every critic from others, you're going to take it really personal, and you will gonna have this custom, I would say, that you're gonna criticize others, and never you're not gonna be grateful or thankful. And as well, I like that you pointed out is that you disconnected from yourself, but you need to be in touch with yourself. You need to, recognize who you are. You need to be proud of yourself. But of course, being a perfectionist, you are not grateful about yourself, never. And it's really difficult to build a relationship in the workplace with people and work and achieve something and perform quite well. Even set up really high standards or excellence for yourself. So I will gonna start to read some comments also here. So Anne both saying like, great topic, congrats, Diana and Vasia. So Muhammad Yassin is saying achievements are make perfect. Success is achievement, but we can't judge our perfection. Good to better and best leads to perfection. So that means, I can see that people like the topic, which is really great and is really interesting topic. So how perfectionists can help us in the professional life. I know that we pointed something, but if we can give an example, and also how perfectionists can harm us. We just, we highlight a little bit about how can help, but also we can focus a little bit about how perfectionists can harm us. Because there is some advantages, but there are some disadvantages, so people needs to be aware of that also.
Mm-hmm. So, as I said, it can harm us because in the way we think. So, I guess the first thing we have to control is our self-critical thoughts. So, we can replace them, because everything starts with the way we think. The thoughts is everything. How we think affects exactly how we feel and how we behave. So the first step for me is to check the way we think. So if we find ourselves thinking self-critically, maybe we can replace it or balance it with more helpful statements. For example, something like nobody's perfect, or I'm doing my best, I can do my best, or I don't need to please everyone. Nobody, it's not normal that I cannot make everybody like me. So I think that's one of the first things, just to have a more realistic thinking, I guess, about how we go about to achieve goals, or where we go to perform on something. Then I think it's about seeing the big picture. I think it's important to see the big picture when we do something. So, for example, when we lose ourselves, because when you're a perfectionist, you can lose yourself in little things. You can lose time just by checking, as you said, many times an email, or improving it 1,000 times. So you can lose yourself into that and lose time. So it's about seeing the big picture and asking things. Okay, this, or because you worry, if I make a mistake, what other people would think, what would happen, what they would think. So it's about asking simple questions like, does it really matter? Does it really matter if I make a mistake? Okay, it matters. What's the worst thing that could happen? I don't know. Somebody, my boss criticize or thinks I'm lazy. Okay, So if that's the worst that could happen, can I survive something like that? Yes, I can survive it. Maybe I could do better next time. Would it matter tomorrow, next day, in a year's time? So it's about trying to see the bigger picture and break down your thoughts, because sometimes, it's about becoming more flexible in our thinking. We create ideas and thoughts that they're so specific, and it doesn't mean that it has to be like that. It's almost like we can think a little bit more open about what it means something and how something can continue to be. So seeing the big picture around that's something else. Something that I like a lot, what I would say, because you said how we can prevent perfectionism than harming us, isn't it? So I'm going, I guess, through how to overcome really the perfectionism. And something that I think is really good, and I like that as an idea when I was working around it, is it's about thinking, what can I tolerate to be less perfectionist about? For example, can I actually be, can I do one mistake out of 5? I don't know, in a presentation. Can I expect fewer people to like my presentation? Can I check less times an email? So it's about people like testing themselves, because no matter what, when we want to change something in our personal lives, in our lives, or in ourselves, really, it takes work. And the work is that we have to expose ourselves to something we are not comfortable around. So, because, and perfectionism is like phobia, really. You're afraid of making a mistake. You're afraid of being judged. You're afraid of not doing well. So phobia, how is it treated? The first thing is you expose yourself. You have a dog phobia. What do? You expose yourself by going around dogs. Yes, you don't go directly to expose yourself to a dog. You can start by looking at pictures of dogs, or seeing dogs on the TV. So very important that when you try to change something, you don't do it immediately. As I said before, everything needs to be gradual. Everything needs to be step-by-step process, because otherwise, if you change something rapidly, it can be very anxious provoking, it can be overwhelming, and it's not healthy. Everything needs time. So when I say, when it's about what can you tolerate in terms of being imperfect, not being as perfect, you can write down, what can I do? Okay, maybe I leave the office on time this time. I don't have to stay the last person, so I'm not being judged that I don't work as well. Or maybe I leave actually 5 minutes earlier than normal. So it's also about doing little things that make you go out of your comfort zone. And although, yes, it might be a little bit anxious at the beginning, this will give such a huge empowerment when you actually do it, because you're actually doing something out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I like, Vasia, that you pointed out about this. People who are quite perfectionist, they're afraid of failure, and especially when they're doing mistakes. So I know a lot of people who obviously they set up their mind to think in a way, okay, that's normal. I'm doing mistakes, that's okay. So I learn from the mistakes that I do, which is great. So, they start kind of changing their thinking, exactly as you pointed out, to see the big picture. Okay, how these mistakes actually can help me. Okay, one way is just to help me to do things better next time, or just I can learn from them, which is great. So it's nothing wrong doing a big mistake, it's great. So Luisa Ferrari is saying, I like imperfection. I deleted the word perfection from my vocabulary a few years ago. That's really nice. That's really nice of
Uh,
thinking. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this with us. Yeah, and then Muhammad Yasin is saying why we expose ourselves. It is very critical. Everyone wants to become perfectionist, and all life rush to become perfectionist. Yeah, in a way, it's like that sometimes for some people. Um, I
but
know.
okay, go. Sorry.
Yeah, I also know a lot of people who obviously, we mentioned a bit early about that. People who are quite perfectionists, they're spending a lot of time on a specific tasks in order to do it perfectly. Even their boss might not ask, but because they are quite self-critical and because they are perfectionists, they try all their best to do it. And I just wanted to ask you how these people can manage their time better, because what is happening, spending like double or triple time for a specific task, first of all doing, second checking, making sure that there are no mistakes, anything, and they ended up spending a lot of time for one task, and they are not really good in managing their time, and they ended up with a lot of tasks on their to-do list, and they might have some troubles then with the boss. Okay, why you are not able to manage your time? So how they can do that?
Hmm. So I think, you know, maybe perfectionists will try to do everything so as to finish quickly on time or have everything perfect. So I think the number one, I would say, is very important to set priorities. Which task is the most important, or which task do I have to prioritize, and put it down first, this, and then you start focusing on this, and then put like a list of which task is the you have to give more priority. And also it's about, I think, realistic schedule, like making break down the tasks in little steps. It's almost like it's good to, as I said, clarity is so important, because if you just think I have to finish, I have to do everything perfect, it becomes so big. So I think it's important to break down the task in little steps, and that also reduces anxiety, because if you have all these big tasks, and you lose so much time, then it becomes so big that then the procrastination might come, and you might like become so tired or so anxious, and you might take longer to do it or give up. So I think it's important to break the tasks in much smaller tasks, and put steps on how you're going to do each task, and also set the right priorities on which task do I have to give more attention and focus on first.
Or maybe also it can be, okay, if this task obviously involve this specific skills, and I know that I have a weakness, for example, on this, just you can spend a little bit more time on that one rather than checking from A to Z everything, you know what I mean? So it's just paying attention maybe to that small thing that you think you have to improve, in that specific task, or you have to be more careful in a way that you need to check to make sure maybe you have not done some mistakes. So
Can I also, yeah,
yeah,
can I
of
add
course.
something? I
Yeah.
think it's important because of I've noticed that when people have some, they are in a sense quite perfectionist. What they tend to do is they try to finish everything on one go. Like they don't take any breaks, so they get really tired. So I think it's important to be able to stop, have time, like, okay, I'm gonna have to read this, for example, do this essay. Okay, today I'm gonna read this and this chapter. Maybe I take a 2 hours or 1 hour break, I go for a walk, and then come back and continue. In their mind is all or nothing, and this is where perhaps it's good to to have some time breaks in between while you're doing something.
Yeah, I noticed the same thing, and I think your point is really valid. It's better just to take some kind of break and then get back to the task, because most of people think, all right, if I started the task, then if I don't finish, and if I stand up, for example, only for a while, then my focus will going to go down. But it's not in this way. It's just it's about their thinking more. Luisa Ferraro, I would like to also share with you another comment that we have from Luisa. Luisa said, like, I think perfectionism is a great plug that hinders professionals and entrepreneurs from achieving their greatness. So we actually coming to end, Vasia. Time always is flying, and
Oh God, it's true.
yeah. So the last question that I would like we discuss about is how to curb perfectionism, how to transform it into a positive, let's say, characteristic, rather than to be a negative characteristic, let's say. So if we can obviously like summarize and give some tips and tricks once again, because there are some people who actually join us a little bit later, so they can obviously get from this question, like from this answer, let's say, what we obviously were discussing about for the 36 minutes.
Well, first of all, for me is one of the first thing, as I said before, is start being nicer to yourself. Create a better and more nurturing self-dialogue. So I don't know, an ideas I'm very fond of is create personal statements you read to yourself every day. I am good enough. I can do as good as I can. I believe, I do my best. I don't need the approval of others. I am fine with the approval of myself. So for me, it's very important to create that nurturing self dialogue, because really, when the perfectionist becomes an issue, it is because there's that self-critical voice which becomes very negative and very punitive. So and this obviously does not allow you to build on your self-confidence, to build a relationship with yourself. So this is the beginning of curbing, of changing, of altering perfectionism. And if you have the drive to do well, the ambition to succeed, combine it with a nurturing self voice that takes care of yourself, and then you can do even better, I think, because then you can have the success you want, plus a more healthy relation with yourself, therefore a healthy relationship with other people around you. Be more realistic, create more realistic expectations about who you are. What can you do? Can you do that? If not, it's okay. Because again, it's about, if you cannot have realistic expectations of yourself, how are you going to have around about the people around you, and therefore how are you going to have healthy relationships? Sorry, I bring the relationships into it because I still, as you see, I'm very into that, and I think it's very important to bring that aspect into the conversation. And be aware of, as I said, change the way you think, create a better, bigger, healthier perspective of about what's happening, why, and start thinking questions like, why am I so hard on myself? Why do I do that to myself? What do I really achieve by being so hard on myself? What would it mean that something is good enough for me? What would make it good enough for me? Because if you ask that question to perfectionists, the perfectionists, they wouldn't know how to answer when would something be good enough, because nothing is good enough, because it's a constant sabotaging. So stop doing that. And I think it goes back to start connecting to the self and being kinder and more nurturing to the self.
Yeah, brilliant. And the last comment that I would like to share is from Luisa. Also, it was a good to listen to this live. Thank you also for the tips, Diana and Vasia. Vasia, thank you so much for for having you at Career Backstage podcast, and I'm waiting to come. I'm waiting you to come to a new episode and talk about another topic, because it was really interesting and I really enjoy. I mean, a lot
Thank
of people
you.
who come into the podcast, they have really interesting stories and also really valuable insights to share, which is great always. And I'm pretty sure the audience can learn so much from each special guest that we are inviting. And once again, thank you so much for having you. And we're waiting for you next time to come with a different topic and share from your experience and your expertise. That will going to be really great. Thank you.
Thank you.
That you've been with us. Thank you for your time, and I will see you in the next 2 weeks with another special guest. Have a great week ahead.
Bye. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.